is 310.8. And these are our basic marking requirements for conductors and cables. And we'll look at examples of these as well. All conductors and cables shall be marked to indicate the following information, and it gives us 5 different things that we have to mark on the cable, that manufacturers have to mark on the cable. And this is what installers and inspectors are going to be looking for. It has to have the maximum rated voltage. It has to have the type letter or letters for the wire. And that's really important because that tells us how we can use it and where we can use it. The manufacturer's name, trademark, or other distinctive marking, some way to identify the organization that made that conductor. And inspectors and UL and other industry participants use that information if they have a question about an installed wire or cable, or if there's an issue that comes up during the installation. We're required to have either the AWG size or circular mill area, so we have to know how large the cable is, very important for figuring out our ampacity. And then if we have a cable assembly where the neutral conductor is smaller than the ungrounded conductors, that has to be marked on the cable. And you'll see that quite often with service entrance cable. It may either have a grounded conductor that's equal to the ungrounded conductors, or it could be smaller. And you'll see both of those out in the world. Now, I did want to point you to one other resource. We're looking at the code, and of course, that's what we're really discussing today. But there are other resources out there. One of those is the UL Wire and Cable Marking Guide. If you do a simple search for UL Wire and Cable Marking Guide, you can get this PDF download. And one of the nice things about it is it gives you a lot of information, even more than what we have in the code. It tells you about optional marking and what the different letter designations on cables and conductors can mean. So for example, if I look at table 1 on page 14 of the document, we have it separated by thermoset, insulation, and it tells us what the corresponding NEC article is, what the category code is that UL uses for that particular type of wire or cable, temperature rating is, whether it's dry or wet, the voltage, the permissible voltages, and so forth. So there's a lot of good information, and one of the things that you'll notice when you look at a conductor print legend, the surface marking on a conductor, is that there are a lot of acronyms, a lot of initialisms, a lot of letters. They all have a meaning. Here is an example of the cable markings that we looked at in 310.8. Now this is non-metallic sheath cable, and so it's covered by UL 719. UL 719 has all of the product listing requirements for non-metallic sheath cable, and you'll see that we have a lot of those required markings. So we know who the manufacturer is. Now that could be an E number. For every electrical product that UL certifies, they assign what's called an E number, and it'll be the capital letter E followed by a series of digits that will identify the manufacturer and the product. And those are perfectly acceptable to be used on cables and conductors. You might see some other information like trademarks, but you'll always see what kind of conductor or cable it is. In this case, NM means non-metallic sheathed cable. The -B is added to indicate that the conductor insulation that is around the conductors inside the cable is a 90-degree C insulation. So we've got that NM-B. This is the size, 14. So we have 14 AWG conductors. We have two insulated conductors, essentially, and then we've got a ground conductor. And so that's what that WG means. There are actually 3 conductors total in here, 2 circuit conductors and an equipment grounding conductor. The cable itself is rated 600 volts. Here is the UL mark to show that it meets the requirements of the UL product standard. And UL does go in to monitor manufacturers. So obviously this print is put on by the manufacturer in the plant. UL sends in inspectors to make sure that manufacturers are meeting the requirements of the product standard and meeting the requirements of manufacturing to put out a safe product. That's how a manufacturer maintains that capability of putting the UL mark on their product. And then a lot of manufacturers will put some additional information on there, when it was made, and perhaps what time it was made, and who the operator is. So there's a lot of optional information that can actually be put in that surface marking.